Hey, everybody. It's Christine Parma, and I am going to talk to you about something really personal today that is up in my world. If you read the title, you may have a little bit of a clue into what's going on in my world. Not so pleasant, some of the things. But the cool thing is that when the shiz hits the fan in your life, no matter what way in which it's hitting the fan, you are always a choice in how you respond. And from this experience that I'm having right now, I have gotten some surprisingly deep insights into myself, my own patterns, my mindset, and some real practical strategies that apply to building your business and the kind of life you dream about. And that's why I'm opening up and talking about it today. So, as you guessed from the title, I've been hacked. I've had my identity stolen, is what it looks like. And this not a pleasant experience. It has taken up a lot of my time recently. And but the cool thing is that I've used some mindset strategies to stay calm through it all. And I'm going to share those with you today. So definitely stay on for the whole broadcast. Share. Hi, Chris. Good to see you. Thanks for the heart. If you have any questions, of course, I will be happy to answer questions and impart whatever help and knowledge I can so that if this happens to you, that you can get through it as easily as possible, whatever is going on in your life that is throwing you into a feeling of chaos and fear and anxiety, and also how you can prevent this, some smart stuff, how you can prevent this from happening to you. So if you don't know who I am, hi, Elizabeth. I'm Christine Parma, and I help heart-centered go-getters to build wildly profitable businesses and lives they love. And you can find out more about me at christineparma.com. And I just remembered, where's my agenda here? There's my agenda. Let me just throw the title up there for the recording. Hello, what happens? The lessons I've learned from getting hacked. And, I go along with that, my identity stolen, because there's somebody out there pretending to be me. So I want to dive into what these lessons are because, and if you've noticed, I've been kind of a little absent online because I've been taking a lot of time to kind of reflect on what I want to create for my business and my life and working behind the scenes and planning out some great stuff for y'all. A lot of it's going to really dive into a lot more mindset work because when at the end of the day, the beginning of the day, the end of the day, the middle of the day, every point throughout the day, how you show up in your life, how you react to situations like this of getting your identity stolen, how you show up with clients, how you show up in your business to go, get clients, all comes back to mindset. All comes back to you, to the inner principles. And far too often in business and in business programs that I've participated in even, there is so much emphasis on the doing, on the, what marketing strategies to use, how to have sales conversations, how to write offers. I help my clients with all that stuff. That is all awesome. But here's the truth. If your mindset is not right, if you've got underlying subconscious beliefs that are there to sabotage you and are going to get in your way and choke you up when you go to talk with a client, for example, or potential client, then you're hosed. You're really hosed. So I've been diving back into mindset work. I love it. I've been diving in a lot more into that in spiritual work. For those of you who don't know, I'm going through a year-long certification program in reading Akashic Records because I see it as another tool in my tool chest to help not only work on myself and help up-level my life, but what I can bring to the work I do with clients to help them. That kind of gets below the surface of what's going on that may be really tripping you up in your life and preventing you from getting what you really want and creating that life you want to. Chris says, absolutely. Okay, so let's dive in because I love to break everything down into like applicable lessons. And here's what I did. So when I'll just give you a recap real quick of what happened, because this may be happening to you and you may not know it. You may have like kind of brushed it off. And I did at the beginning too. I've got a bit of a frog in my throat because I was up way too late last night. So I'm drinking some nice tea. So what it started off as, we've all nowadays we all shop online pretty much. I think my mom's the only one who doesn't do any online shopping. I swear. It's so funny. I talked her into getting an iPhone finally this year. Now she loves it. But so, I've just shopped all over online. And what started happening is I have an account I use for newsletters and subscriptions and that sort of thing. And it's my personal account. And frankly, I don't check it all that often, but I was going through kind of cleaning that out a little bit. And I noticed there was an email from an online site called Zulily where you could buy baby clothes and stuff. So this tells you how long it's been since I've been on this account, because I don't have a baby anymore. My youngest baby's 5, going to be 5 next month. So, but it was an account that was still open. I'd forgotten to close it. So it's still open. And I get this notice that says, we've changed your password as you requested. And I was like, what? Followed by another email that says, we've changed your login ID per your request. And it was in Spanish, which is not my primary language, you could tell. Now, I speak enough Spanish and I could read enough Spanish that I could read what it said, that it said your login ID has been changed. And I'm going, oh crap. Because this isn't me, right? So immediately I go in, I try and log into the account trying to remember from 5 years ago or more what my login was. Couldn't get in, tried to recover, do the forget password, couldn't get in, said, oh, there's no account with your email address because the person changed the login ID from my email address. Now my credit card was still attached to that online shopping account. So I immediately had to contact the company and say, look, my account's been hacked, it's been compromised, shut it down. So they shut it down. No purchases had been made at that point. And, there's fraud protection on credit cards, but still I'm wondering, how the heck did somebody get my information? Now, short story is, all these breaches that you read about, like with Yahoo or Experian, the credit bureau, and all of these other things, that's one of the ways that people get your information. So since then, I found out, these breaches were back in 2016, 2007. Long time ago, but my information's floating out there, as is pretty much everybody else's, I'm guessing by now, out there on the dark web for sale. So I get that account shut down and I'm like, okay, that's weird. I'm thinking, I'm trying to stay positive, thinking, I hope this is it. I hope it was just that account. And then I get a message from Netflix that says, about 2 weeks later, that says, hey, you've changed your password, no problem. And I'm like, oh God, no. And then a message from Netflix in Spanish saying, you've changed your login ID. And I'm like, no. So Netflix, unfortunately, does not make it very easy for you to get help if you are locked out of your account, because they want you to log in to go to the help center. Tell me how this makes sense. And I can't even, I just kept at it trying to figure out. I went to the app store because it said you could access it from the app. I have it on my phone, but you had to log in. So I'm going. I finally get to the chat. They shut it down. Now, since then, if you have a Netflix account, and hundreds of millions of people do, Netflix is particularly vulnerable. And there is apparently an entire black market for hacked and stolen Netflix logins that are being sold so that people can watch on your dime. So one of the ways that you will know that your account has been hacked, even if you don't get the notifications like I did, is if you notice some really weird viewing activity on your Netflix account, like it shows that you're watching a series or a movie or something that you haven't watched. That's not an error. That's not just that's weird about Netflix. That's somebody using your account and watching on your account. Now, I don't know what else they can do, like if they can like purchase movies, that sort of thing. But Netflix is vulnerable. It's so vulnerable that there is an entire black market for Netflix logins and account numbers. All you have to do is Google it. That's how I found out about it. So if you have a Netflix account, make sure you're changing your password periodically. Something I was lazy about that comes to one of the practical lessons I'm going to share. Then the final straw came a couple days ago where I got a message, an order confirmation from Walmart saying, you ordered a cell phone. It's on its way. And you won't believe what else they ordered from Walmart, a jar of Nutella. Are you a fan of Nutella? I don't like Nutella. I'm like, what? Nutella? Like somebody has stolen my information and they're ordering Nutella. Well, which actually will tie in with something I'm going to share with you in a minute. One of the lessons, the spiritual lessons that I feel like I got from this situation. They ordered a cell phone, contacted Walmart immediately, of course, told them it was fraudulent, had them cancel the order, shut it down, etc. They had not changed my login and password on that account yet. They placed an order. And the sneaky thing that people who steal things, IDs, etc., do is they make the purchases small. So if you're not paying attention to your credit card statements, if you're not paying attention to your finances, it will just float through. Especially if you shop at some place like Walmart, you're like, oh, I don't remember that purchase, but that was probably, something my husband did or something I, forgot about, and you just let it go, right? That's how they get away with it. So from all this, what have I learned that applies to my life in business? And actually, that has turned this into a really good growth opportunity, self-growth opportunity, and opportunity just for me to reflect on mindsets that I'm having. The first lesson is, and this is a reminder for me, your outer world reflects your inner world. Now, I'll explain to you real quick what that means. In neuro-linguistic programming, which I'm certified in, that is a saying, your outer world reflects your inner world. That means whatever is going on in your inner world with your mindset, what you're thinking, your thoughts, even you get to, the energetic level of it, it is going to show up in your outer world. So if you're seeing something in your outer world that you don't like, if you're having an experience, especially repeatedly, that you don't like, if you look at something and go, why does this keep happening to me? It's because you haven't fixed it in here. That's it. You haven't fixed it in here. So for me, I looked at this situation and I went, okay, so somebody's hacked into some accounts for sure. My identity may have been stolen on a deeper level. I'm still figuring that out. What's going on here? What's going on here? And I actually went into my Akashic records to get some insight on this. So Elizabeth says, good point. Yeah. And especially when you see this things happening over and over in your life, or certain themes showing up over and over in your life. So for me, I'm like, what's the fear here? What's the fear or mindset that I could be having that would show up as this? And it was immediate to me. I got the answer immediately. And it was about lack of faith that I will be provided for, that the fear that things will be taken from me or stolen from me. And this actually stems from my childhood, where my dad ran the pattern of people stealing from him all the time and essentially stealing from our family because he was a willing participant. Unfortunately, unlike me, I was not a willing participant. He was a willing participant in allowing people to steal from him, and it impacted our family greatly. So when I looked at what is this about for me, what's the underlying fear, it's that people will take what I have, that I won't be supported by, I won't be supported in general. I won't be supported by the universe, that people are untrustworthy, right? Now, these are all things like I don't that are playing in the background, right? Playing in my subconscious mind. Not necessarily, these aren't things that you necessarily consciously think, right? Because I generally think that, and I do believe that the universe provides for us, that the universe is abundant, that we're taken care of when we allow ourselves to be taken care of. And it's something I'm working very deeply on, really, in getting more into my subconscious belief sets at a much deeper level, because look, it showed up. And this actually, I'll get to a point coming up here that ties in with this. But when something is repeatedly coming up in your life, ask yourself, number one, what's going on here? What's the fear? What's the story I'm telling myself about this situation, about life? What is this reflecting back to me so that I can see it, in physical reality, so that I can fix it? That's the point. That is what happens when you are seeing what's in your outer world, something you don't like. It is an opportunity for you to notice it and say, okay, this isn't just, the world is crappy sort of thing. This is an opportunity for me to look at, what am I seeing that's, being reflected in the outer world that comes from in here, so that you can heal it, so that you can fix that mindset and shift it if you feel it's no longer serving you. And Chris says yes. So that's what it comes down to, is what is happening in your life and what you're thinking, your mindsets, your beliefs. Are they serving you? Are they getting you the outcomes that you really want? Is it helping you to have the kind of life or business or love or relationship that you desire? And if it's not, that's when you want to shift it, right? So that was lesson number one. Okay. I got clear at least on some of what is going on subconsciously that maybe I wasn't aware of, or that aware of, that I need to work on. And if I don't want to continue having experiences like this, and this is just, one example of an experience, right? It can manifest in a lot of ways. And I'm actually thankful that it was a small lesson. Very thankful, because I've had bigger, more painful lessons in my life. Number two is, what's the pattern? What's the pattern here? Like, do you notice something? Is this part of a pattern that seems to keep happening to you? So for me, I'm looking at, okay, I've never had my identity stolen, as far as I know. Never been hacked, as far as I know. But what's the larger picture? Going back to that fear of people taking things from me, of people being dishonest in stealing. And I'm like, yes. Yep. That's shown up in my life, many other times. I say many other times. And particularly painful learning experience comes to mind from over 10 years ago, probably 12 years ago now, that I'm like, wow, okay, that's still playing out in my life to a smaller extent right now, but it's still there. I need to go back and re-examine this. So what's the pattern? And then, is it yours? Is this your pattern, or something you inherited from somebody else? Like for me, I mentioned that I was very clear where this pattern came from. I picked it up in childhood by observing what was going on in my family and with my dad. And I don't want his stuff. I don't want that stuff of his stuff, right? We all pick up patterns and programmings and make judgments as a child. And sometimes, the perception isn't even, quote, the reality of what's going on, but your perception is reality, right? So as a child, you assign meaning to something, and it goes into your brain and gets lodged there, essentially, and it's there until you work through it, work it out, or get rid of it by working on your mindset. So I got really clear on where this came from, and I'm like, okay, I need to be doing more work around my dad, things I picked up as a child, and looking at this issue of feeling insecure because whatever I get, people will take it from me. Now, this has huge implications if you think about this. Like if you're working hard to build your business, to make money, to have the kind of life you want, and if you're running an underlying subconscious belief that I'll, have all this great stuff and then somebody's going to steal it from me, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to go. It's like easy come, easy go, right? It's going to go right out the door at some point. Or you get into a loving relationship with somebody who's supportive, and then you find yourself you start nitpicking, you start, sabotaging the relationship. And sometimes you don't even understand, what am I doing? This is such a great guy or a woman or whatever. And what am I doing? Why am I being this way? That's your subconscious mindset playing in the background going, no, life is too good. No, life is too good. You don't deserve it. People are going to take it from you. He doesn't really love you. She doesn't really love you, all this stuff. And you do things to either make it go away or people come in and play the part for you and take it from you. So I definitely don't want this pattern running in my life, and neither do you. So number 3, if you have questions or comments, are you guys finding this valuable? Like how this applies to your life and your business? And I would actually suggest you write these questions down if you're in a place to write them down for yourself when whatever situation or thing that's going on in your life that isn't quite what you want it to be, or you're really not liking, ask yourself these questions. If you like it, if you're getting value from this, please, give me some hearts or likes or share it, whatever you feel like doing, or some comments. So now I'm going to talk about the fastest way to start moving through this energy and shifting the energy. And the fastest way to shift the energy, and Chris says, yes, very much so, on if it's valuable. And the fastest way to shift the energy is forgiveness. So, wow, it's the F word. A different kind of F word, right? Forgiveness. So I'm in the situation of having my identity stolen. Somebody's hacked my accounts. Seems pretty minimal, right? So far, anyway. And I'm going to hold the energy that it is. But forgiveness for the other person, right? Who's doing this? Elizabeth says LOL on the other F word. Yeah. And it can feel like an F word, can it? You're like, forgiveness. Not going to forgive that person. I can't forgive that person. They've done this horrible thing to me, right? You can have that energy too. So forgiving this other person. So this ties back to the Nutella. So I'm thinking, and this is where I'm like, okay, I know what I need to do here. And I got this also, it's like kind of like, you need to do this forgiveness process to shift the energy here from when I was in my Akashic records getting some insight. And comes back to the Nutella, because I'm thinking, the person, so when they ordered the cell phone, there was a mailing address in Florida, down by Miami. Christine, and they changed one letter in my last name on the mailboxes, etc. mailbox that they're having the cell phone and the Nutella mailed to. So I'm thinking, Nutella. Who orders Nutella? And this just kind of helped me start to shift the energy. And I wasn't actually feeling that bitter about it anyway, or upset about it. But if you are, this is a way to find empathy for the person, because I'm thinking, who orders Nutella? Could be a mom, a single mom with a kid or kids to feed, and they don't see any other way to provide for their children except through this, by what they probably view as harmless shopping, because they're like, oh, the credit cards have zero fraud protection. When Christine gets hit with that bill, where she can afford it, and I can't. And if you take it further, I'm like, this person has the worldview that the only way to get what they want, or perhaps the only way to get what they want, is to take from somebody else. And that means that their view is there's not enough to go around. They have a scarcity mentality. They do not believe that if they change their perspective, if they do the inner work, they probably might not even be aware of, that concept that their lives can be different and that they can make a different life for themselves. So I actually got to a place of feeling a bit empathetic, not condoning what this person did, because I'm probably not the only one they're doing it to. And it can really mess up, your credit and your life and cause you a lot of headache and that sort of thing when your identity gets stolen. But this person is so separate from the truth of who we all are as extensions of the divine, as souls and spirits and body forms, that they feel the only way that they can get ahead or provide for their family, get the Nutella, is to steal. And that's sad. That's really sad. And if you can shift your perspective around a situation to think, even in horrible situations, and believe me, I've been working on and forgiving some very terrible things in my life that have happened. And if you can start to see, think what could have been the possible reason that somebody would do this, or that they would think that would be a good decision, or their only option, to provide for their family or something, then you can start to open the door to forgiving, especially if the door's locked shut for you. And you're like, no way, no how, right? Because the bottom line is, when you don't forgive, you're punishing yourself for, grudges, ill will, having grievances, holding grievances towards other people. They're like a ball and chain around your ankle, my ankle, not the other person's, right? You're not punishing the other person or hurting them more by not forgiving them. And if that all they're bothered by you not forgiving them, it is a far smaller consequence to them than it is to you energetically. Chris says, good for you, Christine. That's awesome. Yeah. So I did a forgiveness process around this, and selfishly, totally selfishly, that I'm like, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done with the energy. Thank you for the lessons. I got them. And I don't need this anymore. That person, free to move on. I don't hold any ill will towards them. And I really, truly don't at this point. If they do something else, I shouldn't even put that energy out there, right? Then I may have to do another forgiveness process, right? Truth be told, let's be honest, right? Not perfect here. And there's no such thing as perfect. So that is the fastest way to shift energy, is to shift your perspective and get into an energy of forgiveness and releasing yourself from the energy. And this is actually one of the tricks, quote unquote, that I've used to stay calm in this situation, right? Because what can happen? I mean, if you found out that somebody hacked your accounts and stole your identity, what most people do is go, oh my God, oh, this is horrible. Oh, freak out, freak out, freak out, right? Not only is that a super drain on your own energy, and I had a little bit of that at the beginning, and I'm like, okay, no, this isn't serving me. You can't think clearly as to what you need to do, right? When you're in freak out mode. So you need to think clearly. So the forgiveness process, and also going into my Akashic records immediately, was to find out what's going on here, what's this about, was, two of the quote tricks that I've used. So lesson number 4, and this actually probably should have been lesson number 1, is when you're trying to up level in your life, or you've made a decision to do something differently in your life, it can happen, doesn't have to happen. The shiz can hit the fan, because what's happening is when you decide that you're going to do something different, you're going to go out on a limb, you're going to try something that might be, scary or threatening, could seem threatening for you. Your ego mind goes, nope, that's not known. I don't know what's on the other side of that. And that's dangerous. And I don't want you going there. So throws up all your shiz, right? and it's reflected in your outer world. So you may be wondering, well, Christine, what did you decide to do that may have brought the situation around? Well, I decided that, and I publicly announced this. If you're on my email list, you got this announcement that I'm totally turning everything on its head from what I did last year, which the first half of last year and a bit at the end, because I have this pattern of overworking, this pattern that comes from a scarcity mindset. That is, if I don't work really, really hard, I'm going to fail. That you have to work hard for money. I'm very aware that that's a pattern that's ingrained, has been ingrained in my mind, and I have been working on clearing that actively. And I'm like, okay, so what's one of the ways to really stir things up for myself and to take myself out of that pattern of working too hard, of running myself into the ground, of burning the candle at both ends? Life isn't even fun anymore. And Elizabeth says, me too, overwork, right? The fear, like if I let my foot up off the pedal, I'm going to lose momentum, and then it's all going to shit, right? Excuse the language there. It's all going to shiz. And I'll just have to work. If it's not working and I'm not getting the results I want, I have to work harder. That's the solution, right? That's the pattern. And it's a very undesirable pattern if you want to have a life that actually you're happy with, and a family that sees you sometimes, and good relationships, and fun and that sort of thing. So what I decided is I have put a schedule in place for myself that restricts how much I work. And I am scheduling into times, social time, me time, creative time, and I will be working less than 25 hours a week this year, the rest of this year. That is my goal. And my ultra, kind of like an ultra goal, or another layer of that goal, is not only working less than 25 years, but hacking the crap out of every process, every system, every shortcut to still having the kind of success that I want to have, but doing it with fewer hours and with more joy and love and everything. So I've challenged myself to do this. And Elizabeth says, I was a maniac in school, better now. Yeah, I go back to school and like what I was like in school, and had to get the A's and working hard. And if I didn't, oh my God, my life would be ruined if I didn't get the A plus at least, or A. So I have put specific boundaries in place for me, and it's challenging for me, right? Because I'm dealing with the fears coming up. But the way to get through fear is to get into action. So I made this declaration. I decided, you know what? Working harder, working more did not get me what I wanted. And so what the heck? Let's do everything opposite and see what happens. So that's what I'm doing the rest of this year. That's also why you didn't see much of me in the beginning of this year, because not only was I delivering a program, and I was like, gosh, I did it to myself again, working really hard, had a great time, loved it. People love the program, Passion Launch Profits. And I worked my buns off, at the same time. And I'm like, slipped into it again. So since then, which it ended beginning of March, I've taken some time off. My mom was here visiting and reworking everything. Today I'm going to lunch with a friend. Tomorrow I'm going to lunch with friends. I don't work Fridays anymore. Announcement. I don't work Fridays anymore. I do stuff for me. So that's the gauntlet I threw down to my ego and to my limiting beliefs. And then lo and behold, what showed up in my life? A situation that took up a bunch of my time, and still requires, a little bit of time. So what would be my normal reaction? Can you guess what it would be? How would you react if something non-businessy took a bunch of your time and you still had a gigantic to-do list for your business? What would you do? Well, what I would normally do is like, I have to work every night this week. I have to work on the weekend. I have to work harder and longer hours, right? Go into super freak out mode and go into the overwork, break my promise to myself of not doing that because all this unexpected situation took up all of these hours that I could have spent doing the work, right? Working on my business, serving clients, doing Facebook Lives, for example. Chris says, so proud of you. Thank you, Chris. Heart back to you. And so I am having to be very intentional about not doing that, about not going into overwork and overdrive. Now, last night, truth be told, I was on the phone with a client. Okay, that's fine. But I also didn't work that much during the day, right? So it balanced out yesterday. So that is the shiz, the shift that I challenged myself, the up leveling that I challenged myself with for this year, that then my ego mind said, nope, I'm going to drive you back into that pattern of overwork because that's what you do, that's known, and that's safe, right? I'm consciously choosing saying nope to my ego and my limiting beliefs and saying, we're going to work through this together and it's not going to look like what you think. You know, it's not going to be the way you want it to be, ego mind. It's going to be the way I want it to be, consciously. So it can be that when you decide something in your life that, and then suddenly things seem to go wrong, that's what's happening. Your ego mind starts going, your limiting beliefs, your fears come up so that you can work through them to get to the other side. It's like the glass ceiling, right? You're like, I'm going to up level. And your ego goes, nope, here's the ceiling, bump, bump, bump. And you've got to work through the shiz to get to the up leveling. Now, I don't want you to think you have to create chaos in your life in order to up level. You don't. You don't. You can have shifting things and changing things be easy and graceful. And in the whole scheme of things, this identity theft was not a big thing, right? There are people who've had their identity stolen that is like far blown up, far worse. And like I said, I've been through a lot more painful stuff in my life. So this was I'll say a small reminder of some stuff that I may still be carrying in my subconscious patterning that I need to shift and I need to work on. So I'm actually kind of thankful for the situation, especially from that regard. So this comes to number 5, lesson number 5, to be in full integrity. Now, what I mean by this is not only from an energetic standpoint and like a quote moral aspect, with being in integrity with your money, for example. So if like somebody's stealing your identity, like me, or hacking your accounts, essentially money's being stolen from you because they're using your identity to buy things, right? So money's being stolen from you. So immediately one of the places that I looked, and I've been even working on even more cleaning up my money integrity, plugging up those holes in my energetic money bucket these last months, like being super aware of where my money is, updating Quicken, knowing what's coming in, what's going out, because we can tend to get too busy and we don't pay attention to how we're spending our money. Life gets in the way, or you don't even want to look at your money, right? Especially if there's not enough coming in. People are like, yeah, I don't want to look at that. So being in integrity with your money, not only like don't steal from other people, like that's pretty obvious, right? Don't cheat on your taxes, because those are big money energy violations that will yield you some pretty, major consequences energetically, like money not coming to you. But the small things, being really aware of how you're spending your money, be conscious of it. Because money is energy. So, it's not like, oh, well, it was only $10. Well, what if you think of that as, oh, that's 10 of my energy units? Like, then would that shift your perspective around how you invest your money? Like, you want to be very conscious around your money. So be in integrity with your money means being aware of how you spend it, being aware of the beliefs you're holding around your money and how that's showing up for you. And if something is not flowing, like if money is not flowing to you, then there's something out of alignment. There's something out of integrity, an area that needs to be looked at and worked on. And it's not a judgment. It's neither good nor bad, but be honest with yourself. Where could you be out of integrity with money, or just in other ways, with not returning people's phone calls or emails on time? Like if you're frustrated that people aren't getting back to you on time, do you have an inbox that has a whole bunch of emails that you haven't responded to and people are waiting to hear from you? It's right. It's reflected in your outer world, right? If people are like delaying getting back to you. So if you're being indecisive about making a commitment to a program that you want to take part in or a coach you want to work with, are you finding that your clients are being indecisive about making a commitment to you? Be in integrity, energetically, and also from a practical standpoint, because I got kind of lazy about changing my passwords, for example. Practical things. I actually use a free app called LastPass. If you haven't checked it out, you definitely should check it out. And I'll link to it in the description. I'll link to these and some other things that can be helpful for you in the video description after we're done. But I can't remember all the passwords, and especially if you're supposed to have different passwords for different accounts. It is a very good practice to have, and I was not really doing that. I actually have a little notebook, little green notebook that I also keep like the passwords written down as a backup. If you ever come to my house, you'd have to fly a long way to get to my house, but don't grab my green notebook. You need to change your password. So I went in as part of like bringing myself back into integrity from a practical standpoint and did some password work, and some login work, changing things up. Chris says she uses it now. Yeah. LastPass is really awesome. And it's free, for the basic account, which is pretty much all you need. So do practical things like that, like changing your passwords, changing your login IDs. Like when I was on with one of my banks, I was like, yeah, I should probably change my login ID for my first and last name, huh? And he's like, yep, he said, I was thinking that. I was going to say it. He said, I said, every single person, you shouldn't have your banking login ID for your first name and last name. Pretty obvious, huh? To somebody who might want to hack it. So change it up, from a very practical standpoint. And then you can get, if you are wanting to be even more aware of not only like your credit, and who might be using your identity. There are, identity protection services, monitoring services that, I'm kind of a little bit on the fence of like, okay, energetically, is this putting worry energy out there? I'm choosing to approach it from a perspective of it's smart, because we have, I have so many accounts. I'm so online so much. Pretty much everybody is online so much nowadays, and your information's everywhere, that it's just smart to be aware of if it might be compromised so that you can fix the situation, right? And just go at it from that perspective. So I have enrolled in a monitoring service that I researched, and I'll put the information in the description too. So those are one last one is, so the last tip I want, kind of bonus tip I want to leave you with, and that I mentioned at the beginning, is no matter what is happening in your life, no matter if it's, somebody being, giving you a bad attitude, to somebody stealing your information and hacking into your accounts, to clients not signing up with you, to you not getting something you really, really wanted, you are always at choice about how you want to respond. And when you start responding consciously to situations instead of reacting is going to throw you into the fear, the freak out mode, that's going to shut down your ability to think and like make intelligent decisions around how you want to respond, just from a very practical standpoint, you take a moment to say, to think to yourself, if the freak out comes out, fine. Catch yourself in the freak out and go, okay, this isn't serving me. Or ask yourself, is this serving me to freak out? Maybe you need to freak out for 5 or 10 minutes. Allow yourself, it's kind of like the pity party, right? Allow yourself the 5 or 10 minutes, but then make the conscious decision of, how do I want to respond now? What would serve me better and get me the outcome I want to have instead of freaking out? And proceed from there. And that is a tip that applies across your whole life, across the board with business, and it will dramatically shift the kind of results that you get, just that one thing, and what shows up in your outer world. When you start consciously choosing how you want to respond and asking yourself, does this serve me? Am I responding in a way that is in integrity with my values and who I want to be? The kind of person I want to show up as in the kind of life or business I want to create. When you are working from that space, that alone will dramatically shift your energy. It will dramatically make you feel dramatically better in the moment, and it will start changing what you are seeing showing up for you in your outer world. So I hope you found this super helpful. If you did get value from this, then please share it. Share it on your timeline. Share it with your friends. Give me hearts, likes, and loves. Let me know that this actually resonated with you, and feel free to leave comments or questions even in the comment section of this video, and I'll come back and respond to them. And of course, if you want to know more about me, Christine Parma, and how I help ambitious, heart-centered go-getters create wildly successful businesses and lives they love, and I'm expanding the ways in which I do that, actually, so you'll see a lot of changes coming up in the next few weeks, then you can find out more about me on christineparma.com. So it has been my pleasure. You're welcome, Elizabeth. You're welcome. And thank you, Elizabeth, Chris, and all the others who are watching, the others that I don't know who are watching. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. It is, of course, my joy and my mission to help you and provide you with helpful tools, resources, and information that will help you create the life that you desire and the amazing joy and prosperity and abundance that you deserve. So until I see you next time, you can come join me over in Successful Women Entrepreneurs, my Facebook group. But until I see you next time, many, many blessings to you. Take care. Bye-bye.